This is the Above Average Podcast, and you are listening because you want an above average life. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Above Average Podcast, the podcast where we talk to above average people about their above average lives. Now, today when my guest reached out, I'd only seen his name a handful of times popping up. He was kind of knew everyone, but I didn't really know much about him. So when he reached out and I found out his story, I was very much like, oh, this is a very interesting guy. So, my guest today is an entrepreneur, an internet marketing startup wizard, and a well-travelled musician, having played with some incredible artists around the world and amazing events from here in Newcastle to all the way in the Sydney Opera House. Please welcome Mr. Nick Abel to the podcast. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate.
Now, for anyone listening, we have just recorded a lot of this, and now we're doing it again. So, if I don't seem surprised by Nick's answers, that's why. So, saying that, it was only the first 5 minutes. Right, okay. Yeah. So, mate, let's go again, shall we? And fingers crossed nothing goes wrong. Right, okay, mate. So, take me back to, let's say, the start of your story. So, you're about 8 years old, you're out shopping, and you see something in the window of a shop. What is it you see in that window?
So, yeah, I remember being in town with my parents, about 8 years old, being in the Central Arcade in Newcastle City Centre, and past the shop called Windows, which is a music store, and seeing in the window of Windows some instruments, and what drew me was the guitar. A few guitars were in the window, and I've got this memory of being in the Central Arcade, seeing, the mosaic floors, seeing the guitars in the window, and just being like, wow, like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
It was just like a connection that I can't explain. And that stayed in my mind my entire life,
Yeah.
So,
like,
yeah.
It's like a calling that you had from 8 years old. That's crazy.
That's kind of what it felt like. As strange as that might sound, I'm sure people have events like that happen throughout their life with different things. But yeah, for me, that's what I remember, 8 years old.
Nice, man. But you didn't get that guitar till 5 years later.
Well, it wasn't that guitar, but I didn't get a guitar until later, because I remember saying to my parents, I want a guitar. Can I get one at Christmas? Can I get one for my birthday? And they were just kind of like, yeah, whatever kind of thing, you know. And it wasn't until I was 13 that I actually got an instrument for my birthday, which was from my cousin. So it was a gift from my cousin for my birthday.
Like an inherited gift.
Kind of, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how often did you practice that? Was it like an everyday thing? Did you shut yourself in your room? Like, how dedicated were you at that age?
So yeah, I was obsessed right from the start. I just loved the guitar. I just loved everything about it, about music, and I just would play all of the time, every day. Had a little band with my friends, even though I just played with one finger, because there was no internet. There was no, there was books, but I was only young, so I didn't have any lessons or anything because my parents didn't have a lot of money, my dad worked in a factory, my mum worked in an off license, and later she worked in Asda. I was just kind of left to my own devices, so I just used to play with one finger. Then later I was two fingers like this, because I just didn't think, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What was the first song you learned?
Do you know what? I can't even remember. It wasn't like anything like Wonderwall because that hadn't been written at that point,
Everyone plays Wonderwall, man.
Well, yeah.
It's very open.
I don't even remember what it was. Me and my friends had this band. One of my mates played guitar, but he played cello before he'd had lessons, so he could actually play. My mate was a drummer. He had these little Casio little drum pads that you would get from a catalogue. But because we were practicing in my mate's garage and we didn't have power or whatever, he had some pots and pans that he was hitting.
That's cool.
And we just had this song where we just played 3 chords, just with one finger across all the strings.
That's cool, man. I mean, I got a guitar. I was saying to you before, I got a guitar when I was like 12 or something like that, and I was buzzing. It was like this black and white guitar. And I was like, I'm going to be the next Busted or the next, I think it was like McFly was big when I got a guitar and stuff. And I was like, I'm going to be the next boy band. Just didn't have the discipline for it. Because I think a lot of people, they might think, it looks cool to be in a band, but the amount of discipline it takes to actually play a musical instrument is crazy.
Yeah, it takes time, it takes dedication, it takes patience, all of those things,
Yeah.
But, there was no internet there, and I wasn't really into gaming, stuff like that. So that became the thing that I channeled.
That was your thing.
A lot of all of my energy into, Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
When was your first sort of big break, would you say, with the music career?
I had a few things happen throughout my teenage years, trying to get things to happen, and nothing really came about And I had this dream, this vision of making a living from music, you know. I worked in a bank. I worked at Northern Rock for a few years.
Oh God, I remember that.
And was which is now Virgin Money. And I was just, all I wanted to do was to be a musician, to study with the greatest, and do that for a living, you know. And it wasn't until I was 20. I was actually 22, and I ended up in India, of all places in the world, living and studying with the great maestro Pandit Ravi Shankar.
Which is a name that some people will know, and some people won't. So, just obviously, I'm going to skip back a bit. We'll talk about him in a bit. So,
Sure.
you sent like a lot of articles and stuff to papers. You wrote to people. You sent out a lot of stuff. Like you really wanted to push that out there.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, where do you think that drive came from? Like, because people. That's what I really want to get across: is where does your drive to do what you do come from? Where did that energy come from? Was it just a natural thing, or was it something that you developed? Like, where did that kind of come from?
I think now being a lot older and looking back on things, you have kind of a different awareness and a different understanding of yourself.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, there was definitely just something there for sure. But I don't know, the drive came from the desire to do it, the desire to make something happen, and also coming from a family that is not musical, and parents that worked normal jobs. My dad worked in a factory for his entire life, you know what I mean? So coming from a family that was involved with that sort of thing, I was just different, you know, and I knew I was different. So I felt like I had to kind of push a bit more in order to get the people around me to go along with what I wanted, even as a hobby. Do you know what I mean? But certainly when I made it known that I wanted to make a living from it and make it a big part of my life, it was a bit of a challenge with the people around me. So I guess a lot of it initially, when I look back, was to try and get some support from others. So I could say, like, look, you know what I mean? Like, I'm making this happen, I'm making that happen, I've got this connection, I've been on this story, I've been in the paper, I've this, I've that. I suppose when I look back, a lot of it was that at the start.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like, there's a great book called Ego is the Enemy, right? And a lot of people think that, you know, if you've got an ego about it, if you want more, or like you said, you knew you were special, right? People hearing that will go, well, he's got a big head. Right? He's got a big head. But that's how you get ahead. You need to believe that there's something that you can do. You need to believe that, because if you don't, you're just going to fall above, under the average. You know what I mean? You're going to fall below that line because you weren't willing to say, well, hang on, I believe in myself. I know I can do something more. There's something I've got to give. You know what I mean? So was that ever a challenge to you? Did you ever go, oh, maybe some, you know, a big head? Did you ever have that self-doubt in you?
Not really, because this was all just internal speak within myself. I never verbalized it, really. It was normal to me. So I didn't really think that I had an ego or a big head. And I kept it to myself. I'm quite quiet, reserved person, you know. And it was just, like I say, it was normal to me. So I didn't really think about any of that until I got older and I look back on it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the name we mentioned earlier, Ravi Shankar, right? So I obviously had heard the name and I was like, where do I know that name? So when you Google it, it comes up mostly to do with the Beatles, funnily enough, that he was George Harrison's sort of guru, his spiritual musical mentor and stuff, which is crazy. Someone that inspired the Beatles. But when we say that Nick worked with him and had a relationship with him, like on a serious level, like this wasn't just a meet and greet and a handshake. This was something that you did for years. So tell me about how you guys met, first of all.
There's a funny story about this, actually, and my life's full of stories and I love to tell them. And I remember going to a concert in London. I'd never seen Ravi Shankar in concert, and by the way, just something with regards to addressing someone like that, he is my guru. And in Indian culture and Indian arts, you would never call someone by the name.
Right.
Ravi Shankar or Joe Bloggs or whoever. You would always address them with the like, you would call it like a maestro. You would say maestro, but in India you would say a pandit. Right. Which is a hired learned person. You would address them that. We wouldn't really call him by his name. We would call him Guruji.
It's a sign of respect, isn't it?
Guru, and then G is a sign of respect that anyone would give to an elder.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just wanted to make that very clear.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah, no worries. So how did you guys meet then?
So I went to a concert in London to see a different act, and I went down, and one of the musicians on stage was talking about this person. It ended up being Ravi Shankar,
Mm-hmm.
and he was at the concert. He was in the front row, and he stood up, and everyone was just going mad. You know, cameras flashing, and I was with my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, "Oh wow!" She was like, "Who's that?" I was like, "What? Like, you don't know who that is?" No. It's like, "Oh, okay." At the end of the concert, I was only about 5 rows back.
Mm-hmm.
I managed to get to the front because people were crowding round him. It was like Beatlemania, they say. It was like it was Michael Jackson, and people were just going mental, you know. I managed to get right in front of him. We stood face to face, and I had my camera. And this was before the days of selfies and all of that, you know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get a photo, and we just made eye contact. And I just didn't, I don't know, something just came over me, and I just didn't feel like it was right to take the photo or to try to get a photo. And I just walked away. A year later, I was in India, living in his house, living in his home, learning from him and all of that. So how that came about is through email, having perseverance, not taking no for no, and just keep on trying. I sent some emails, and to cut a long story short, I was offered to go to India to live with them in India, because in that culture and in that art form, you can go to college or university, but generally you would go to a guru.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not paying a tuition fee for a university course or whatever. It's like you're surrendering yourself to the guru and to this art form and your instrument.
Yeah.
And that's what you give as, I guess, a fee, if you like. I guess that's what you're handing over.
Your attention, your time, your energy. Which is
this
crazy.
is serious form of learning, you know.
Yeah, which you don't find in countries like this. Which you don't find that in the UK. You don't find people appreciate people of that level. You know what I mean? It's like if I met I don't know who's a really good podcaster in this country, Chris Williamson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know Chris Williamson? Have you heard his
I
podcast?
don't know
Really,
that.
really popular podcast. Or even Stephen Bartlett, someone like that, Diary CEO and stuff
yeah.
like that. Like I'd want to spend as much time around them as I could, but it's not like, you know, you wouldn't show them that level of respect. You want to be friends with them, you want to learn from them, but it's the difference between the Indian culture and our culture is just the respect level is just massive. Like people will literally bow to, you know, people over here. It's like, Hanji, how you doing, mate? Nice to meet you, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's very, very different.
It's a thing where you do bow.
Yeah.
It's called a pranam.
A pranam.
Pranam is
Right.
You would touch the feet of the guru.
Nice.
And a lot of younger people do it with their parents, their elders, respected elders, all of that. It's a thing in India.
Yeah.
Which to me, when I first went there, was very strange for me to do that and to kind of understand that, which took a bit of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, you touch the feet of
Yeah.
It's a way to get blessed, the blessings of the guru and good wishes and all of that. And it's a way for the student to show respect, which is done on a regular basis every time you greet the guru.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you being in your 20s, being around that, was it kind of a bit of a learning curve, a big adjustment for you?
I mean, it was, yeah. I'd never travelled abroad other than when I was about 10 or 11. I went on holiday to Portugal with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd never been anywhere, right? And to go to India, of all places, on my own.
Yeah, it's a big ask.
To live, not permanently, but for several months, was just like a massive shock, massive culture shock, huge. And then living in this amazing place with this amazing family under this amazing guru was just like, it was just another world completely. Even though I'd read books about it and I thought that I had an understanding of it. Well, of course, like anything, you don't really until you put there.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, wow. Like,
yeah, massive shock. Yeah,
like, huge. Massive.
What was the day-to-day living like with him? How would you describe that experience? Like, did you sit down together over a bowl of Cheerios? Like, what was the kind of day-to-day thing?
So it was quite a big place, you know, a big home with a recording studio, an amphitheatre, an underground archive, all sorts.
Wow.
And yeah, most days we would have breakfast together. People would come down in the kitchen and we'd have lunch together. We'd have dinner together. not every time, every meal, every day, but a lot of the time,
Yeah.
I guess the communal or the family dining room would be used, so it would be pretty much living together.
Yeah.
And Guruji would come down to the music room, and we'd have a lesson, or he would play. Sometimes he would just play, and I would just sit there and listen.
Mm-hmm.
He used to like to walk. He used to have to walk for his heart and various other things. So sometimes he would take me on his walk, and he'd just be talking, counting little rhythms and teaching little things and telling stories, because, you can also learn, well, you do learn from inspiring stories, So there would be all sorts of things that he would talk about. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm going for a lesson now and I'm done with my lesson and I'm going to chill out and I'm going to whatever. This was like 24/7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy because a lot of people will never experience that level of dedication to something. Like it's like an hour lesson here, an hour at night time, whatever. I remember when I one of my first sort of filming jobs was took me to like Finland and stuff, and I had to go there for a month, and that was such a strange experience because for me it was, I got up and I was with the cameras, I went to bed and I was with the cameras, I was editing in between, I had time for, I had a bit of time to go lift some weights or, go sightseeing or whatever. But for the most part, it was non-stop. This is my work. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it was my first real taste of, oh shit, this is the amount of dedication it could take to become good at something, And I think I credit that as a lot of the reason that time spent there is a lot of the reason why I, do a podcast now and have, such a good time with cameras and stuff. Well, sometimes technology doesn't work for me, but that's just life, isn't it? So, but yeah. So tell me about the sort of the tours that you went on with him.
So once I got to India, after 3 weeks, they were right. We've got a concert in Mumbai.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to come, and you're going to play. Now, just to be very clear here, I've never and would never play a sitar on stage with artists of that caliber, and certainly not my guru. Bear in mind, I was right at the very, very start. But there is an instrument in Indian music called a tanpura, which is like the drone in the background, the kind of kind of a sound, which doesn't take a huge amount of skill to play, but it,
it's an integral part of the song.
Yeah, it's like, you're more of an accompanist versus
lead guitarist or something.
Well, yeah. So for me, that was just like, what? Like, what? I'm going to be sat on stage. Wow. So that happened, and, the energy on the stage and being in very close proximity when an artist of that caliber is performing is just something that I can't even put into words, something that you just feel and you absorb. It's just an energy that's just, but there's so many things within the music, so many feelings that all of us experience when we listen to music, but being in close proximity is just something else.
Something you'll never forget, really.
Well, so that happened. Then there was 2 other shows in India that happened as well, so I'd done 3 concerts as an accompanist. As part of the learning process as well, a guru would take a student on tour with them, 2 concerts with them, and have the student accompany them on stage, playing the drone instrument in the background. Even in some cases in India, an artist or a guru would have a student sit on the stage.
Just chilling?
Just sit on the stage. Well,
I enjoyed it, but just like,
to feel that energy and that closeness and really kind of learn in that very close proximity kind of way. Because you're talking about an art form that's music. Music goes through the air. It's energy, right? So being in close proximity is something. It's like if you listen to music on a CD and then you go to a concert of that artist, it's on another level, right?
Yeah, it's totally different. Yeah.
So then you go and stand on the stage, it's on another level again because you're in the close proximity of the artist. So, yeah.
How does it feel to have all those eyes on you at that moment? Like, because obviously you're in a big concert hall and everyone's kind of watching you, like wondering who's this guy, and then in the background, who's this guy? Like, did you ever feel that way? Did you ever feel nervous?
It felt very strange at first because I was thrown into this world and it was all new. And it was just like, whoa. But one of the things that took me by surprise was actually you can't see a lot of people when you're performing.
Lights and stuff.
Depending on the lighting.
Yeah.
sometimes it's complete darkness, and it's just, I don't really like that, because you feel like there's nobody there, but you know there's people there, but it's almost like,
It's creepy, that, isn't it?
It's a bit strange, it's a funny thing to be on the camera, so to speak, and have people looking at you and all of that, but it's part of being a musician.
Yeah.
Being a performer
is
just one of those things, yeah.
Yeah, nice. So how long did it take you to get to this? Because you played the Royal Albert Hall, you were in Paris, Hamburg, you did the Sydney Opera House. You went around. You got around, Nick. How did that happen?
So I've been in India for a few months learning sitar, and the weather got pretty heavy in about April, so they would leave, and they had another home in California, so they would travel, and then in between there would be tours and concerts and stuff. So I'd been home a little while, a couple of weeks, and I got a call. We have a tour of Europe for 2 months. You're coming on this tour. So I went to London, and they had a base in London. I ended up accompanying Guruji and his daughter Anushka as well, in concerts all around Europe, and then I came home after that. I was only home about a month, and then I went to America for 3 months, and they did a 3-month tour of America. So we do like Carnegie Hall, New York, which is like the most prestigious concert hall in the world. Again, I'm only there as an accompanist, but
you're still there.
When I say I'm only there, it's like I'm with this family, this amazing man, icon, loving, humble, funny, just generous, serious musician on another level, human being. And it was just, but yeah, I was there still, and I was very happy to be doing it. And it was a great experience. Also, on the other side of it, it was very difficult as well. Really hard work. Mad routing of flights and travel, and
all the gear and stuff.
Very little rest time, and that was quite a shock to me. The level of work and the level of just madness of things happening and little rest. Yeah, but it was a great experience. Yeah, and then from then I went back to India. In the winter, I would go to India each winter when the weather was bearable. Yeah. So I would go for a few months, and that ended up being the pattern of events for a few years. I would go on tour. I would come home for a month. I would go to Europe. I went to the Far East. We went all over the world, multiple times. Then Anushka, Guruji's daughter, she had a solo career, so she was doing concerts on her own. So then I would go on tour with her and do stuff with her, then come with her father and do stuff together.
Nice.
So that was kind of the pattern for a good few years.
So how did that come to an end? Why did that come to an end, your work with?
So, that was my work for 10 years. And then with Anushka, I had a child. I wanted to see my daughter grow up. Yeah. And I kind of thought, it would be good to try to get some things happening on my own. So I pulled out of a few tours because I didn't want to miss my daughter growing up. That was kind of the start of me pulling away a little bit. But before I did that, Anushka had done an album called Rise, which was with some electronic musicians from India, some artists called the Medieval Pundits. And the guys that did the album, they couldn't do the tour. And I just got a laptop at the time, and I got Logic and Ableton and these programs, and I got a little MIDI keyboard. I didn't have a clue about, but I wanted to learn about music production. And I remember Anushka was in my room, and we're listening to music, and she was like, you could see her brain just click. Oh, so they can't do the tour, but could you do it? And I was just like, it was one of those fake it till you make it moments. Yeah. I was like, well, yeah, I'll do it. Because I knew I had time. The tour wasn't for a few months. So I ended up stepping in the position of, the top electronic artist in India, doing the laptop, doing beats and all this kind of electronics. So I did 1.5 tours for that. And that's when I actually stepped back. So things were starting to happen. I was starting to get into doing other things. Yeah.
You were stepping in as sort of your own man at that point.
Well, yeah, your own musician. And one of the things I realised, the level to become a Indian classical artist, performing artist, the level is so high. Yeah. The music and the art form is on another level. You're talking 15 years of your life of study, serious study. before you're really going to get anywhere as a performer, or even just start. So for me, I started to realise that.
Yeah.
And I'm a guitar player as well. I like other forms of music. So I kind of had this inner battle of like, what am I going to do? I don't want to stop doing this, but I want to start to do other things. But then I had a child and I started to pull back a little bit, but I was still very much involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you made the right choice then?
100%, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So when did you start to do, because I mentioned earlier, obviously you're an internet marketing wizard, so to speak. So when did you make the move into that sort of world? Like what first drew you into doing that?
So it was like, I pulled out of a few tours and I was at home thinking, well, what am I going to do? I was actually saying on the dole for a while just to get some income.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get a job and work a 9 to 5. I wanted to be involved in music, so I thought I'm going to start teaching guitar.
Yeah, well, especially after what you just did. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So I started teaching guitar privately, one-to-one lessons. I started learning about business. I remember actually writing in my diary, one of my goals was to start a business. And that was so I could have free time. The main drive was so that I could see my daughter grow up. And that led to me reading the book, The 4-Hour Work Week.
Oh, I love that. That's the first time someone's mentioned that in this podcast.
Really?
Thank you, Nick.
That's
yes, thank you, Nick.
Book.
It's an incredible book.
Yeah. I read that book, but I got to the point where I was teaching 30 hours a week. People weren't showing up. People were coming late. There was a lot of time prepping. I ended up starting to write a book because I would be writing out these charts and I would be writing out the same charts over and over. And I thought, well, why don't I just write it out and photocopy them?
Yeah.
So before I knew it, I had this pile of stuff. So I started thinking about putting a book out. Then I thought, well, I've got this material. Is there any way that I could generate an income from it if I had a book? And that led to reading the 4 Work Week and becoming aware of a few internet gurus, I guess is what they're known as. Frank Kern, Jeff Walker, Eben Pagan, Ryan Lee, Tony Robbins as well, all of that. That led me to thinking about making money online and creating something, this lesson material that I had, and to see if I could sell it and turn it into like a passive income. And that was the start of this journey that I went on in terms of, internet marketing, making money online, passive income, all of that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So when we use the term internet marketing, right, because that sounds very like, it's like I'm a corporate this and I'm this and that. So what exactly, if you had to describe it in layman's terms, what exactly is internet marketing? Just for anyone that's like, I haven't got a fucking clue what that is.
So, I mean, internet marketing to me is using the internet to make money.
Right. Fair.
Selling products online, creating content online that has value, monetary value that you would sell, or using other people's products as an affiliate to sell them, and then using certain skills, strategies, tools, internet marketing skills, strategies, tools specifically to make that process more effective.
I like it. Do you think you enjoy the intricacies of that the same way you enjoy the intricacies of music? Like, was that something that was always kind of interesting to you? Like, you enjoyed the sort of the dash of it, the sort of like, could this work, could this not, is this the right thing, you know what I mean?
Like, when I first became aware of it and I first got into it, it was through just wanting to learn how to generate more money and free up some time. I was never really into like marketing. Whenever I would hear marketing, the term marketing, I would always be like, I'm not really into that. I'm not really into sales. I worked in a call centre for a while when I was younger. And I didn't really like it, So I wasn't really into the thought of it, but I got massively into it because I found it so fascinating. I became obsessed with it, I guess.
Yeah.
And certainly when I started making money, which was a bit later, it didn't happen straight away.
No. How what was the gap, do you think?
A year.
A year.
Well, actually a year from when I launched the product and it made nothing.
What was that product?
So I launched a site called learnindianmusic.com because I'd been involved in that art form for such a long time and I knew a lot of people. I thought, well, it was the most obvious thing to get into and to do. Sense, yeah. And I went to India with a camera. I didn't know about any of that, you know what I mean? And made a site, and it made nothing. which was a big blow. But I learned so much from that process that I just kept going.
Yeah.
So
Right. Well, it's funny because like a lot of people think that, when you look at these internet gurus and stuff, like you read the 4 Hour Workweek, and it's a great book. But to get to the level, like for anyone that hasn't read the 4 Hour Workweek, I can't actually remember the guy's name. Do you remember the guy's name?
Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss, yeah.
Tim Ferriss.
He's massive as well. I can't believe I forgot his name. But he basically, when he made his business and stuff, he ended up, he was doing everything himself, which is quite common for business owners, right? They do everything themselves. They do all the tax, the accounts, they do the marketing, they do everything, the sales.
Which I think is good to do at the start.
You've got to do it. Well, yeah.
All of it, you know.
Well, yeah, you've got to do it. But you got to a point where it was basically, this is too much. I need to delegate. So I think he used a lot of virtual assistants and stuff, and just delegate everything out. So that was the premise of the 4 Hour Workweek, and all he had to do was log in, make sure everyone was doing their jobs, the money was flowing nicely, and then he would just go live his life. That's the dream for everyone. But to get to that stage requires, something like Nick had a year before the product sold anything. It's like you would maybe have 10 years of just absolute manic hustle before you were even able to cut 2 hours out of your week. You know what I mean? So what kind of hours were you working to make this work? Like how often were you?
Well, it was actually more than a year, because when I had the idea to do it, I ended up getting on this fellowship at Teesside University, which was called the Digital City Fellowship, where you would get some money and then you would get this mentoring from these digital experts. You would get to use these facilities and so on. And at the time, I couldn't figure out how to do a membership site because I wasn't techie. And I hadn't read the 4 Hour Workweek at this point.
That's why it didn't work, mate. That's why it didn't work.
And I remember going to a few web developers to get a quote, and it was like 20 grand. And I was like, what? Like, that's just like, I haven't got that money. I haven't even got it. And then I read the 4 Hour Workweek, talked about using Elance, which is now called Upwork, how you can hire professionals throughout the world and leverage the exchange rate from the pound to whatever currency and spend a bit less and get really good quality work done. So I got a membership site done for $500 compared to 20 grand pounds. It was a huge thing. But that whole process, was I would get little bits of knowledge here and there, and I would be looking online, I would be looking at webinars and free ebooks and stuff. I didn't have any money to pay for any courses, so I had bits of knowledge here and there, and there was a lot of gaps in my knowledge. So I guess that is part of the reason why it took a lot of time just to get to that point where I built the first site that I had. Watching webinars at 2 a.m, reading books, reading bits and bobs, getting little snippets of information here and there. And the big thing for me was Tony Robbins, actually. I had a student, a guy from Ireland who came over a few times for a few days, and he was into all of that kind of a thing massively, and he would talk about this person, Tony Robbins, all the time, and he would be like eating cans of spinach to like
what, like Popeye?
For the alkaline levels in his body, so he would sleep less and all this. Kid was like, I was like, what? Like, that's when I first heard about that kind of thing, alkalizing your body and all that kind of thing, for peak performance. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. When he left after the lessons, he gave a few things to me on CDs. These were like things that were copied onto a CD or a DVD. And it just had Tony Robbins written on it in like a Sharpie. And I looked at it and I didn't know who he was. My student, had talked about him quite a bit. I just put it on my shelf. Yeah. It'd been on my shelf for a year, right? And I saw that film, Shallow Hal.
Oh,
Tony Robbins was in the film, in the elevator.
Because he puts a spell on Jack Black, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's that bloke. Oh, and that kind of made me get it out. And I thought, I wonder what's on here. And I put it in, and it was Get the Edge, Personal Power. And I was like, what? And I started listening to it. And that was it, like.
Yeah. I was going to say you didn't put it in. It was just a copy of Shallow Hal.
I did end up spending money, and I actually bought the box set of Get the Edge later. But that changed a lot for me. Like, yeah.
Isn't it crazy looking back that like all the self-development was on like CDs and DVDs and stuff. Like you had to, none of this like YouTube stuff. It was just like you got to buy this like what was his course? It was like 8. It was like 6 DVDs or something. It's crazy that. It's mad. Did you ever go meet Tony Robbins to see his?
No.
His live?
I've wanted to, but I haven't actually got around to do that.
Yeah, I heard Date with Destiny is incredible, but I'm like, part of me is like iffy about it. I don't know why.
See, for me, it would be like I would have to be close to the stage.
Yeah.
Because I know what it's like to be in close proximity of that kind of energy of someone like that. I wouldn't want to be. So that means more, like it costs more.
Yeah. I mean, you do get to meet him when you go to Date with Destiny. I think you come see the crowd and stuff. But there was one on Netflix called I Am Not Your Guru.
Yes,
Did you watch that?
well, yeah.
That was incredible. That was the one thing that made me want to go. But he's just got such a recognizable voice.
Yeah.
And I think everyone buzzes over Tony Robbins. I mean, he's the best for a reason. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but was there any other sort of gurus like that really stood out to you? Like, did you go buy any more like DVDs of anyone else's courses?
So I was very much, and I am very much into Bob Proctor, Grant Cardone a bit later. But it's funny actually because I didn't have a lot of money. My site that I built had made nothing, and I'd spent the last money that I had from the last tour that I did on it, which was quite difficult, you know. However, I persevered, as I do. You know, I just get up and crack on and move on. A situation happened in my personal life that led me back to my parents' house, and I'd always had a room at my parents' house which was a converted garage where I kept my bits and bobs or a sofa bed in there. I had some musical equipment there, and I would always flip back and forward.
Well, you're not a musician unless you've lived in the garage. You know? So.
And I hadn't been back officially at my parents for long. It was only a few weeks, and there was a huge flash flood, right? And the full house got flooded, destroyed, everything. And I was on the ground floor in the garage. Yeah. All my studio equipment, instruments, books, everything got wrecked.
God, man, I can't imagine that.
And lucky that we're at home when it happened. We could salvage some things. But the insurance company wrote everything off that got touched by the flood water because it's sewage water. And I ended up getting some money from that. And what I did was, I did 2 things. One is I took my daughter to Euro Disney.
Nice. Yeah, that's good.
Which was great, right? And the other is I spent some money on courses with Jeff Walker, Eben Pagan, and Frank Kern. I actually bought those, you know, list control, product launch formula, mass control, mass conversions.
And you did like a deep dive into every single one?
So, I was in and filling in the gaps of the knowledge that I already had, as well as reading some other books as well, which were very good. I actually had some coaching with Eben as well through the offer that they had on at the time.
Like a one-to-one thing?
So I got to ask questions and stuff like that to fill in knowledge. And at that point, I really kind of realised, you know, there's a lot of blaggers about. There's nothing wrong with that, personally. Everyone's got their own thing going on and all of that. But this is when I really learned the ins and outs of the whole thing. Yeah. Which I put into what I did, which was a year later after my Indian site that completely flopped. Ended up working with British guitar player Andy James.
Which we'll get onto as well. Yeah. So let's move into that. So Andy James is a name that it just, you know, it's a common name, you know, Andrew James, could be anyone. But for this Andy James is the lead guitarist of the second biggest metal band in the world right now.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Five Finger Death Punch. So how on earth do you meet someone like that? Like, how on earth does that friendship blossom?
So after the Indian site didn't work out, I thought, this has got to work, but maybe I'm just doing the wrong thing and I've got to kind of do it in a different area. Yeah. And I thought, I'm a guitar player. I'm passionate about the guitar. I know everything about the guitar. You know, I know all the artists. I'm just a nerd with the guitar. Like, I'm a total guitar freak. Yeah. And I did some research and I thought, some of the things that were missing in my head were, I need to work with someone who's known. Now, the Indian artists that I worked with were known, but they didn't have products out. They didn't have educational courses out. Yes, they had fans, but I felt like I needed to find someone that ticked more boxes. Andy had a signature guitar with ESP. Andy had products, educational products with other businesses. Lick Library is one of them. You go into a guitar shop and see all these DVDs of how to play Metallica, how to play Guns N' Roses. A lot of them were Andy, you know. So he was known as an educator, but he didn't have his own thing under his own name, didn't have his own website at the time. So he ticked all the boxes for me. He had fans. He had a few albums out. I just thought he's already got these educational products out. It's a no-brainer. So I'm going to approach him. So I sent him a message on Facebook.
Well, like, is it like a fan page? Was this, or was this his
I
actual?
don't remember if it was his fan page or his personal account at the time, but I just sent a message. This is something that I would do throughout my life. How I ended up in India, how I ended up making things happen with the press when I was younger to try and raise money and all of this. I would just reach out and ask.
What was it you sent him in that message?
It was just like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. I can see that you don't have your own site. You don't have your own products. You're working for all these other companies. They're making money off you. Wouldn't it be cool if you did something of your own? What I propose is that we'll work together and we'll split the profits. But you obviously earning a larger amount because it's your work versus working for a publishing company, effective is what it would be.
Yeah.
He's getting the lesser amount, which I knew about all of this at that point. And this is something that would be an asset for you because it's yours.
Yeah.
You own it. You're part of it's your business. And he replied basically just saying, well, I don't know who you are. You could be anyone.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But yeah, let's have a meeting and talk about it. So we met up in Leeds and we had a few hours going through and bashing the whole thing out. And obviously talking about, the privacy of like, he was like, I don't know who you are. And I was like, well, I don't know who you are as well. It goes both ways. It's like we need to be secure and have things set up properly and all that, which we did.
Yeah.
And we agreed. We shook on it and that was it,
Nice. It's so
So
great.
simple, just by asking. There's so many people that I've met throughout my life that have these wonderful ideas and passions, dreams and all of that. And they don't go for it. They don't ask because they just don't think they're going to get anywhere. You might not get anywhere, but to me, that was just the way I was, the way I'm wired, I guess.
Yeah, but
it was just obvious.
That's like what was said at the beginning. You've got to have some sort of self-belief to do it. Like, for me as well, like doing the podcast, I was like, what? I made YouTube videos for like 5 years. No one gave a fuck. No one barely watched them. I got like one video that reached 1,000 views, and I was like, oh my god, yes. But no one cared. But now, finally, like people seem to be interested in this podcast. I'm so grateful for the way it's grown and the way like people are listening and stuff. And I think for me, starting this, I was like, I'll buy a microphone and then I'll see. But even just buying the microphone for me was like a form of, okay, I'm going to try and commit. And then it was
just little things that levels you up.
Well, yeah, exactly.
I
wasn't going to try and be Stephen Bartlett off the cuff, like, because that's not going to work, right? He's got a platform, he's one of the dragons on Dragon's Den and stuff, for God's sake, you know what I mean? And he's built companies out the wazoo, right? But it was like one of them things, like, am I good enough to interview people? Do I have the skills to do it? Do I have the people skills? Do I have the the discipline to do the research, to do whatever? And the truth is, I did doubt it. I doubted it, but the difference between producing a result and then just having the idea is just that little tiny spark of execution.
Yeah.
And
execution.
Just like, if you want to start a podcast, buy a microphone, download the software. Because if I didn't download the software and buy a microphone, if it wasn't visible, I'd forget. I'd totally mind blank that I want to do a podcast. And I think, I'll buy the microphone tonight, and then I'll go home and play Xbox and forget about it. And then I'll do it the next day and the next day, and I'll just pass it off. Do you know what I mean? It's like, do the little tiny bit of execution, send that message, buy that thing, download the program, whatever it is you need, but just do something.
Yeah.
Do something.
That's what I got from Tony Robbins, actually,
Yeah.
on that course, Personal Power 2, which is the most successful self-help course ever in terms of sales, was, right, what's 3 actions that you can take now that are going to get you towards what you want to do? Or what 3 things you've been putting off? Do them now. If it's, right, I want to start the gym, it's like, well, okay, pick up the phone and make an appointment, or join the gym, go online, join it, do something, order that book, make that call, and then you're starting that process already of whatever it is that you want to do,
Pick up the phone, send the message, just do something productive. Like, have you read The One Thing by Gary Keller?
I haven't read that one.
That's a really good book. I highly recommend it, because it just changed the way I view things. Like, he literally says, like, 1,000,000 times through the book, what's the one thing you can do today that will, like, basically move your life forward in the direction you want to do? And just that one question to ask yourself, what's the 7 things that you need to do to accomplish it? It's like, what's the one thing that you can do which is going to have the biggest impact on your day? Super simple.
And if you do that every day, it could be something tiny, like, I'm going to make my bed today. That's going to make you feel better and start you off, or it could be something a lot more, but all of these things happen because we all have doubt. Everybody has doubt, It's just to, like, make sure that's to the minimum, or if it is there, just to ignore it.
You got to kind of
or
bite
use
away
it as
sometimes.
fuel. There's all sorts of things, but a lot of people are consumed by it, and it's sad to see when you see someone who's talented or someone who has a skill and they don't make that, they don't take that step. But yeah, for me, it was just normal to do that. I didn't think I was doing anything different or whatever or anything like. I was just the way it just seemed obvious to me to make a call or do. That was it,
Yeah, you had that logical mindset very much.
Obvious,
Where you just like, well, I want to be here. This is what I need to do.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, man. So how else did the friendship with Andy James, what else? What did you guys end up doing together?
So
like, how did that
we
progress?
ended up creating a site called the Andy James Guitar Academy, which we've had for 10 years now, which started out as a membership site with loads of lessons from Andy, courses, video lessons, downloads, etc., etc. Andy lived in Northampton. And the agreement was that he would come up every month, stay with me for a few days, and we book a studio and we just shoot some content. And like you mentioned before, at the start, I would do everything on my own, other than build a site, which I had some freelancers at that time, because I'd done the Indian site. I'd been through this process already. So that's when I started to realise that wasn't a waste. Yeah, I might not earn nothing from it, but I earned a lot of knowledge from it. So, that's a lesson in itself, So Andy would come up and stay with me for a few days and we'd shoot content. And we did that every month it was supposed to be every month, and it ended up being every few months, every couple of months. We did that for about 3 years straight to build a product library. Because one of the things I went on about him was, we need to build a product library,
Yeah.
But we'd hang out together, he'd stay with me, I took him into Newcastle City Centre once on a night out.
Nice.
Which was
But you got him pissed?
yeah. And we just got on,
Yeah.
It's funny because I wasn't really a fan of him before this. I knew who he was, I knew what his music was, I just haven't really listened to it. But, we just got on so well, and I watched him develop over this 10 years, and we had a great friendship, and we had a great business relationship with a lot of trust. It's one of them things, I guess it's rare.
Yeah.
Certainly for me anyway, to put trust in someone and have them put trust in you, and not one or the other stabs the other one in the back or anything like that. We've had a good relationship, and that's reflected on the business and the success that we've had, and Andy's success as an artist as well.
Have you ever been to see him play?
I've seen him play.
Band? Did you meet the rest of the band at all, or did you?
No. I've seen him play before on his own. He's played here in Newcastle. I've seen him around the UK. But yeah, when he joined Five Finger Death Punch, he used to talk about them a lot. Them and Killswitch Engage. I never really listened to Five Finger Death Punch before till Andy joined them, which we knew about well before it ever became public, by the way. So I started listening to the music and I was like, oh, I quite like this. I quite like the lyrics, because I was never really into lyrics much, and I'm not into lyrics. But with them, a lot of the songs really resounded with me and things that I was going through at the time. But I definitely think Andy was a good fit for the band, and he's leveled them up a bit, quite a bit. And I went to see them in Copenhagen.
Nice.
Yeah,
beautiful city.
Yeah, lovely place. Went to see them, and it was great to see him, because I would always say to him, you're destined for this. You one day you'll fill in for someone, or something will happen, and I always thought that it would be a band called Dream Theater. If you've heard of them, and but yeah, he's just a perfect fit. Fits them like a glove, and yeah, it was great to see him on stage in a massive arena.
Yeah,
Royal Arena at Copenhagen. I mean, they're playing, massive stadiums throughout the world, and I have for many
they supported
years.
Metallica,
so they're on tour with Metallica, in support with Metallica. It's like, but they sell out stadiums on their own. Hence, they're the number 2 metal band in the world, which goes off record sales, concert attendance, ticket sales, all of that. They're huge. Well,
I'm not a huge metalhead, right? But I've heard of them. Do you know what I mean? I've heard their songs. You can't when someone's that big, when a band's that big, you can't skip the songs. Like, a lot of my friends are, I've got a good friend who was, I think, episode 3 on my podcast. He's a good friend of mine who's a musician as well. I'm actually going to send you his details, because he has a music podcast. Oh, cool. So I think he'd be a really good guest for it as well. Yeah. He's just starting out, but I'll send you his details. So, but it's interesting to see people's growth and stuff. But so one thing that I know we wanted to to discuss and get onto was something a little bit more of a dark period of your life, and I know you were obviously open to discuss this. So
Yes,
you for reasons unknown, we can't talk about specifics, we can't name names and things like that, but you ended up having a relationship with someone, not a romantic relationship, but a friendship with someone. Can you tell me about the start of that friendship? What can you tell me about that friendship before we get into the nitty-gritty of it?
So, yeah, I mean, I have a small group of friends. There's a few of us that we've been friends since we're 3 years old. Went through primary school, went through high school, if you like, went through the whole thing of, partying and all that as, once you reach 18 and had a very close friendship with a very few select people, Yeah.
Yeah, so how did you things start go downhill with that?
I think doing what I was doing, when I would come home, it would be like I felt like I was living two lives. I had this life at home, and then I had this life traveling and doing all the music thing, and they were very separate. And I would kind of feel like I would step into one and step into another. And one of the things that I experienced that I never could foresee was haters, jealous people, and a lot of people that were close to us would, not a lot, but a few, would make comments and say things and have jealousy, envy. And I think for a few people that, certainly with this person in particular, it ate them up and drove their behaviour.
But it started to get a little bit strange, didn't it? It started to go beyond a hater, didn't it? So
way beyond.
Yeah.
That.
I'm being vague because I want you to be able to talk about as much as you're willing to with this. So how much can you go into that?
Yeah. So basically, I was stalked for several years by a very close childhood friend that I loved very much, and we had a great friendship. But I never really realised there was this other side to this person. And yeah, I was stalked, but stalked in the sense of not in person, but in terms of devices, digital, cyber. Cyber stalking is the term, cyber harassment. And I knew about it. However, I didn't realise or really think that it was anything sinister. I knew that this person was into that and did this for a living, and I had all of that knowledge and interest in all of that. We had such a good friendship, I never really thought for one moment it was sinister until a chain of events started to happen. And I started to feel like I was going mad, actually, because things were happening on my phone, my laptop, and I would be like, it happened a lot, and it would be like, I've got an internet business. I'm pretty switched on with the internet, technology, and all of that, I'm not a technophobe at all.
Yeah.
And it just started to mess with my head a little bit, and I would come to this person and go, have you seen this? What's this? What's that? And I realised later that it was a game for this person, that they were getting enjoyment from seeing me going, what, like? And then from that, it did turn even more sinister, where several years later, I caught this person out with, you can get these tracking apps. I've got a child, right? In fact, I've got 2 kids, and a lot of parents will track their kids' devices, certainly now in this day and age.
Find my iPhone,
Of course, yeah. So there are tracking apps available that not just track your location, but your calls, your messages, your social media, everything that you're doing on the device. A lot of them are for parents to protect their children from,
harm and stranger danger. Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't realise that this was actually happening to me, and it had been happening. And some of the things that had happened in my life as well had been this person doing things underhand, making out that they were my friend, but actually stabbing me repeatedly in the back. And when the penny dropped, it was like I felt sick. I was ill. It was just the most awful moment, because I kind of knew, but I didn't realise the extent of it.
You didn't want it to be fully true.
And there was a few times that I'd approached this person about it and denied it, but then would say little things here and there, and so I would try to wipe my devices, and they were like, oh, that's not going to do anything because it's internal. It's like a drive had been put in my laptop, that I bought from this person, third-party drive that would send the information. And this sounds, I suppose, crazy, but the world that we live in now, it's actually Cyber Security Awareness Month now. Cyber crime and all of that is huge, from people stealing money, stealing identities, scamming, phishing, malware, this, that. But this was happening to me as an individual from another person that wasn't out to steal money or get, or anything like that, steal my identity. It was taking all of my knowledge of what I was doing, all the knowledge of what I was doing in my life, and using that to mess with my head mentally.
Do you feel like a puppet on strings kind of thing? Was that kind of the vibe?
It was the most bizarre thing. So many things would happen, like, it was just like, but when the penny dropped and I caught this person out, it was just, that was the moment when it was like, I'm just no more, I'm done, like, a friend of mine. And
did that end this sort of charade?
It didn't end the charade, no, and the charade is actually still going on as of now, hence we're being a bit ambiguous about this. Because it is a criminal investigation, because this criminal behaviour. It's illegal. It's a crime to do this. And it's a crime to do this, certainly on this level, because it's abuse, you're kind of like abusing someone through devices, using technology.
Well, it's like, imagine living in Big Brother. I would imagine it's a similar sort of thing, an involuntary Big Brother. Someone spying over your shoulder. And it's
a bit like, the way the world is now with a lot of technology, and you get a lot of hackers. You hear about, Amazon or all these companies getting hacked or whatever. And it's like, cybersecurity is a big thing. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
It's all right, man. It's all right. So it is. You are right. It's 100%. But it's very easy now. Like you said, these people that are sending email scams. Like I get at least 3 a week being like, your Facebook page needs attention, and I'm like, does it? Or are you just trying to scam me? My friend, our mutual friend Luke John Harrison, gets about 6 a day because he's quite like, got a large social media presence. He replies to them. He doesn't click message, but he replies to them like, okay, pal, take it down and all this stuff. And he's like, no bother, I'll fax it over or something. Do you know what I mean? It's just trolls them a little bit, But
I mean, what I was going to say before was, you have this thing called ethical hacking. There's an ethical way to do it, where if a business gets infiltrated or whatever, someone will come in. But, there's people out there in this world there's good and bad in everything, This is a situation where it's nothing ethical about it, where this person's used their knowledge to commit abuse and to mess with my head over several years. Involving later my daughter and my family and other things like that, to the point where I thought, I need to do something about it. But I was frightened. Because I had little evidence or whatever, I wasn't really straight in my own head, because it did affect me a lot, As anyone that gets stalked, or anyone who has anything done with a mental health or attacked in that way, it does erode you away, and you do have doubt, But it got to the point where it was just too much for me, and I did report it.
That was a good move. That was a good move, because a lot of people, I think, go through things like this and they're too scared they're scared of the ramifications and stuff. Obviously that would have crossed your mind.
Of course.
What happens if I report this? Am I being stupid for reporting this? Is it just something, could it even be a joke? Do you know what I mean? Is it a prank? Is it a prank that's gone too far? But I think when it gets to the point where it's affecting your everyday life, your mental state, your overall happiness, I think that's when it's time to say, absolutely, I need help with this. So there was a point. I'm not unsure of the timeline with this, but you lost around £60,000 at some point. Was this? Is this related to this ongoing scenario?
So that's got nothing to do with this. No. So after I'd started the site with Andy, I had a lot of people come to me. It's funny because I never had a site. I never promoted that I do this. Just people would come to me. So Andy was in a dinner with an artist called Frank Ambali. Now Frank is a wonderful artist, an artist whose CDs and books I used to buy as a teenager. He's an artist who I love very much, and I ended up through Andy working with Frank and creating a website for Frank. Well, creating a business model. Replicating the similar business model that I'd done with Andy, that I tried to do with the Indian site, and doing an online guitar school with video courses and all of that with Frank. And it was great to get to work with someone who, again, like Pandit Ravi Shankar, like some other people that I've worked with and met throughout my life, like Andy. It was great to get to work with someone whose music you admired, but yeah, that was a very good relationship, and we built a great business, made a lot of money, helped a lot of people I got to work with, and one of my idols. I got to stay in his home several times in Los Angeles, and we had a good friendship, which actually turned sour 3 years down the line. And how do I say it? How does one say it? Got ripped off, bumped, elbowed out, shafted, whatever you want to call it. Because we had a business, we had a contract, we were partners, and that was its own thing. And I thought that I was protected, and I certainly wasn't going to do anything sinister. It would be foolish to do anything like that, and I hadn't done anything. I wouldn't do anything like that with Andy or anyone else who I've worked with. I wanted to build this and scale it, and for one reason or another, Frank wanted to own everything, and which is fair enough to a point, you know what I mean, and wanted to move on, and and I ended up losing quite a lot of money that we'd put into 3 courses that we'd worked on, that we'd shot, that I'd went out at my own expense to Los Angeles to stay with him and his family, which was a wonderful experience. I don't have anything negative or bad to say about it.
Yeah.
These things happen. People have their own reasons. But yeah, I ended up losing quite a lot of money and was working for a few months and didn't get anything back and got elbowed out, basically, which was very hurtful emotionally, because I love Frank very much. I loved his music. I loved his family. I stayed with his family, and that was the start, I guess, of going into a dark period, I guess. Yeah.
So tell me what else happened with this dark period of your life. Like,
so my dad had cancer, and he'd had his prostate out. Big scare, and I'd had an up and down relationship with my parents, throughout my life, and I've been travelling the world and I've been away quite a lot, and my dad was always the one who went to worked in a factory his entire life, went to the pub on a Sunday with his mates, and he was quite stable and quite a firm man, and as a kid I didn't really respect that, but as I've got older I've respected it a lot more, what he's done and the dedication that he's given to his family. But yeah, anyway, we've had more ups and downs over the years, shall we say.
Yeah.
So I ended up, I was living in a flat at the time, and I loved living there. It was great. However, I wanted a house. I wanted a garden for my kids and various other things, and I just wanted more space. And things were fine at this point, but my mum had said, well, why don't you move back here? Put all your stuff into storage so that when somewhere suitable does come up, you can just go. You don't have to give your term and all of this, and you can be around close to your dad and what have you and help around. And so I did. I moved back, and I ended up being there for about 1.5 years, because shortly after that, this is when all of this happened with Frank.
Yeah.
And, this was over a period of about 6 months. It wasn't just overnight, right, see you later, bye.
Yeah.
It was a gradual period of kind of like being elbowed out.
Yeah.
Because we had a contract together. I did actually seek legal advice later, and I was told that, you may have a case, but because he's based in America and you're here, you're going to need legal counsel here.
Oh, God.
Legal counsel there.
Yeah, of course.
And 60 grand's a lot of money, but really, you're going to spend more than that on legal fees, so really it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Probably better to just cut your losses, take it on the chin and walk away.
Yeah.
Which is what I ended up doing.
Yeah, so this part, you mentioned to me that you sort of shut yourself off for quite a while.
Yes.
What was going through your head during this period of time? Like, what sort of thoughts were coming up? What sort of feelings did you have?
I mean, it was just like, things go wrong in life, right? But things really, really, really went wrong. And not just one thing, it was one thing after another. And I'd always been able to recover from this throughout my life when things would happen, But this was something that happened that I didn't recover from.
Yeah.
And I couldn't recover from for a long time. It sent me into a very dark period of my life. I look back on it now, and there was a lot of lessons that come from it. But at the time, I just wanted to like run away and pull myself out of it.
Yeah.
And I would come out and go in and come out. It was kind of like this, you know. And yeah, I'd refer to it as the dark night of the soul, and spirituality is what people call it, you know. And I'm very much into spirituality, and that's definitely it. Definitely is what happened. Yeah.
Just you just the whole story of this, just going through, like if you look back at where we started, where you get your guitar and then you go work with these idols and some incredible people, and then for all this to just kind of all sort of happen in I mean, 6 months out of your entire life is not a long time, but it's enough time for things to just all come at once, right?
Yeah.
Like
there's various other things in my personal life as well that happened.
Yeah.
Things with my kids and other things, you know what I mean, that did really, really knock me as well. So it was like I'd come down, I'd start to feel all right, and then something else. And then, but these were major things.
Yeah.
A lot of major things were happening. And it just, I'm human. And it did really affect me, you know what I mean? Which I did feel embarrassed about, ashamed about. I didn't ask for help. I didn't go to the doctor. I didn't ask for help. I didn't really talk about it with anyone. I just kept it all to myself.
Yeah.
Because of, because of all of that.
Did you eventually reach out for this help?
I did eventually, yes, yeah. I eventually reached out, and after being in a dark period for well over a year, like it's a long time of someone's life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To be in that darkness. And eventually I did, and it was, lockdown happened and all of that happened.
That makes it even worse.
It didn't really affect my life that much.
Yeah.
Because I had an internet business, which I loved. At one point I had two, and then actually at one point I had a third one with a singer, a guy called Daniel Tompkins, who's a vocalist from a band called Tesseract, and we had a vocal coaching site. So I had that as well. So I was still doing work, you know what I mean? But yeah, we had lockdown. I had an internet business, and I was like, I'm done with this in a lot of ways because I'm having no human interaction. My daughter's a bit older now, so she's not my little shadow and my little mate. And she's doing her own thing and being a teenager. And I was just like, I was sat in the room and I'd be on the laptop and I would be like, I just need to do something, but I didn't know what to do. And something popped up, and it was a guy called Paul Mort. Who you'll know, who's been on this podcast.
Yeah.
And I call him Morty, right? It's like, I knew who he was. We'd never met, but we'd chatted before. Seemed to be someone on a similar path to me who'd gone through some
dark times.
Darkness,
for sure, yeah.
And had used the internet to put stuff out there, and it had a lot of success and flopped and came back out of it. And I knew Paul, and this ad popped up on my Facebook, and this is one of the good things that comes out of social media.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good things there. Certainly coming out of all of this hacking thing and how that affected me, I would be paranoid and scared to even open my laptop sometimes.
Well,
Didn't know what I was going to see, if something was going to happen, I was going to have this odd thing pop up or whatever. It was just like, it was horrible,
well, that would make, going through that would make anyone skitsy about opening.
Like, you're talking like this was happening for years.
Yeah.
So it was a build up over a lot of time, So an ad for Morty, he had a course called Unstoppable 28. Yeah. And the ad popped up, and we make and sell video courses or e-learning, if you like, digital courses. But for me, I was never really into that kind of thing. I'd never bought any video courses or products before. Yeah. But we're in lockdown, right?
What else are you going to do? Yeah, you might as well learn something, yeah.
So I've got to do something. I'm going to do it. It was a month long, 2 calls a week, some PDF documents and stuff, and I didn't really expect much from it, with all due respect to Morty and the level of what he's on and the knowledge that he has. Yeah. I just thought, not really going to get much out of an online program. It's just not me, And I was very surprised. I got so much out of it. It pulled me out of this darkness that I was in and gave me some structure and gave me something to focus on. And I was in a group, it was on Zoom and stuff.
When you see everyone else,
a group of people who were telling their stories and in similar situations. And I was like, all right, okay, I don't feel as alone and as isolated now. I got so much out of that 4 weeks. Got me into a routine again, got me focused again, got me thinking about goals again, got me back to the natural way that I was. Yeah. And And I went on immediately after that and did a 3-month course with Morty.
Was that Mansformation?
Mansformation.
Yes.
Which was seriously leveled up. You know, I got a booklet with a planner and all of this. And I'd always had planners and diaries, and I would always make notes. I'd always have stickies and things around. It was just the way that I worked. Never much of keeping a diary, but, you know, certainly not consistently. But, yeah, I went into this program straight off the Unstoppable 28, 3 months. And I learned so much from that. Getting into rituals. I learned about just so many things, you know. I got into Hertz frequencies. I'm a musician, you know. I've been a musician for many years. I'm a music fanatic. But the Hertz frequencies was a total new thing for me, even though I kind of already knew about it, but I didn't really know what it was.
Yeah, like the healing beats.
I got into Reiki. I started going to Reiki every month. This is when, because I'm very spiritual. I'd been in India. I'd lived and studied with the great Pandit Ravi Shankar. So I was very, very much into spirituality, you know, meditation and all of that kind of thing. But not really in terms of energies. But, you know, I got into crystals. I got into going to Reiki. I got into doing meditation, but not silent meditation with frequencies and all of that, and various other things as well, you know.
Yeah.
I got so much out of that. However, I was still in very, very much in a dark place. And I didn't complete that program, you know. Which...
You didn't turn up to the last meeting,
I didn't turn up to the last meeting, and I, you know, there's a few calls that I missed out on, and I didn't get the T-shirt, I didn't do the dip, I didn't get the certificate, and I didn't get to meet Morty, which I knew him, I'd never met, and I just wanted to have this final kind of like a completion date, if you like. Saying that, I did learn so much from it, so much. And a year later, when I'd started to pull myself out of this darkness, because I kind of went back into it a little bit, because I had a relationship with someone, and that went pear-shaped after several months of, you know, just one of them things that happens, but it did wound us quite a bit.
Yeah, especially when you're in that sort of mindset already, it's. Yeah,
and learning that everyone's got their own agenda and people are different, and all due respect to people and all of that. It's just one of them things that happens, you know. And it ended up being a year later, and I was like, I'm going to go into it again because I want to complete it. I want the T-shirt. I want the T-shirt.
Which T-shirt was it? The Big Dick Energy T-shirt?
No, not that one. It was we do what we said we would do.
Oh, do what you said you would do. Yeah.
That one. I just wanted that T-shirt, and I wanted to complete it, and I wanted to be at that event on the meet-up day and do the dip in the sea at Shields, you know what I mean? So I paid for the program again. I did the full 3 months again. I completed it. I went to the meet-up and I done it, and it was such a cool thing, you know, just like... Did
Paul say anything about you redoing it, or was he like...
Nah, I didn't really say anything, you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, it was like, I'm here again, like, I flunked out, but I'm back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm back because that's just the way I am. I'll get up and get up and get up, get knocked down. I'll just keep getting up, you know what I mean? Like, what else are you going to do?
Well, yeah, because by the sounds of it, you'd had this run of just go, turning up, doing the work, doing this. Little knockback, yeah, that's fine, keep going. But this was a big knockback for you. That it was kind of, and then all of a sudden you'd come across something that you'd let go of and not completed and not seen through. That must have not sat right with you for.
It just bothered me.
Yeah, like an itch that you couldn't scratch. Yeah. No, so how would you describe? So how long ago was that you did that course?
So this was 2 or 3 years ago now.
Yeah. So are you in a better place now?
Much better place now, and I have been for quite some time. It led me on a journey and on a path of healing, of inner work, of shadow work, of accepting my own wrongs and the dark parts of myself that I didn't like, parts about myself that I didn't like, certain things that I was doing, self-sabotage, 100%, all of that. And, you know, I was not in any denial about that. I was fully aware of that. These were things that I knew that I needed and wanted to address that weren't automatic. You don't just get up in the morning and go, oh, well, It takes work, actually. We live in a negative world, a negative state, a lot of negativity. I don't watch the news. I don't read the newspaper.
No, me neither,
None of that. But I do. Negativity does affect me because I believe that I'm an empath and I can feel energies and stuff like that from other people. I wanted to go into the inner work And I was actually told by a spiritualist friend of mine, you need to do the inner work, go to music, you've got music in you, this is what you need to do. There's dark people around you, there's dark people around everyone, there's darkness in you, darkness in me as well. It's like admitting that to yourself and going, I need it to come to the surface.
Yeah.
There's emotions within me that I struggle to deal with, that I guess are pushed under the table, that I wanted to feel, I wanted to deal with. That actually sent me into a bit of a meltdown again, because I was doing things to distract myself from this. And when I actually sat with it and was just still and waited for these emotions to come up, that would come up, I just sat with it until and allowed my body to feel it.
Yeah.
Instead of running away from it, doing things, drinking, doing whatever, you know what I mean?
Well, you face your demons
like,
finally.
Yeah, it's like, but that's actually very hard.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult process to go through. Facing your own trauma, your own childhood wounds, your own shame of things that you've done in your life, your own fear, all of that exists, you know what I mean? And it was about bringing that to the surface, feeling it and trying to release it, which led me to sound baths, which led me to going on retreats, which led me to doing breath work, which led me to the Hertz meditation, which is a huge, huge thing for me.
Oh, yeah.
Being a musician, being into music. I love ambient music. I like listening to it. It became a ritual for me that I started doing when I was on the transformation course, that I would track my hours. At the end of that, I'd done something like 160 hours
Wow.
of Hertz meditation.
That's a lot of meditation.
In 3 months.
Yeah.
And it became just a daily thing for me. These things that people say, I must do this and I must do that and I must check this off my list. It's like, I realised this is a way of life. It's just something that you do.
Yeah.
It's something like you get up and you brush your teeth. You don't brush your teeth, you feel like all day,
Yeah, you feel gross, yeah.
It's like, it's just a way of life. And for me, it's like, it's led me onto this path of going back to music in a different way. I just performed at a full moon event on the beach last week for people that are doing all this kind of chanting and yoga and worshipping the moon and worshipping the elements. I'm very much into all of the elements around us. I love nature. I love the sea and all of these kind of things. I find a lot of peace, tranquility and joy and happiness from being in that kind of environment, coming away from the internet thing and all of that.
Well, yeah, we're creatures, we're animals at the end of the day. We need to be outside and in nature, really, yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I met a wonderful chap called Aaron, and he does this thing called a woodland reset, and I've seen this ad pop up on Facebook, and it was like, I wanted to go on a retreat. I didn't want to, I used to go to the Buddhist centre and I would meditate sometimes there, and I didn't want to do yoga because I'm not really into that, And I saw this day retreat, and it was forest bathing, wild sea dip. I wanted to go into the water because I felt like I wanted to cleanse my body and cleanse my aura and cleanse my energy of negativity, things that had happened to us, things that I'd done to myself, all of the shame and guilt and all these kind of things that I was feeling that I felt was driving a lot of my behaviour and my actions that I was doing. I wanted to go into the water, and this is why I was quite disappointed when I didn't finish the transformation the first time.
Yeah, it's ritualistic,
the dip, you know what I mean? And I could have done that any time, but I wanted to do it with the group,
Yeah.
So I ended up doing this event, and Aaron was actually on Robson Green's TV show, and leads a lot of retreats and events throughout the country in nature. But there was a lady there that had these bowls, and they were all different colours. And when it came to do the sound bath, which I'd never heard of before at this point, being a fanatical musician, being a fanatical musician, it's great when you discover something new.
Yeah.
And this was something that was just like more lying down in the forest, doing this forest bathing, meditation, breath work, which was new for me. I've got asthma, so I struggle with that. I wanted to really get into that, But the sound was like, this girl started like doing this with these bowls and all different colours, and I was like, whoa, what on earth?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
So these frequencies that I've been listening to on YouTube and we go by headphones every night in bed, that's what it is. That's what's generating that sound, as well as like a synthesizer or something. And that led me on a path to going to a retreat in Portugal and doing breath work, cold water immersion, sound therapy, sound baths, if you like, frequencies. and getting more and more into that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to the point where I thought, this is something that I could do. Because I've studied with a guru, with the
Yeah, yeah,
ultimate guru, you know what I mean? I've lived it, I've felt it, I've absorbed it, it's who I am, it's part of who I am, the light and the dark.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's led me onto this path now where this is what I'm getting into doing. And like anything, like a lot of things in my life, it just appears, these things just appear.
Yeah.
These situations, events, whatever you want to call it, interactions with people. They just
Well, the more you do, the more the opportunities come.
Well, of course, yeah, it's like law of attraction, Bob Proctor, right? And that whole thing, Abraham Hicks and all of that, which I'm very much into, is like, and it's about frequency and putting yourself on this vibration of, if you're going to be doom and gloom, that's what you're going to feel like, that's what you're going to experience, that's what you're going to be drawn to, it is going to be drawn to you. And likewise with the positivity and positive thinking, I guess. But it's positive thinking on steroids. There's a system, there's a strategy to it, there's a reason, there's a scientific explanation to it all. And once you start to do it, you're like, wow, things start to happen, you know what I mean? It's something that I very much strongly believe in and have felt and experienced and I'm working with to this day, yeah. And I'll do something that I'll do. Like I said before, it's a way of life. I'll do this. If I don't do it, I don't feel right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
If I don't do it for a day, I miss it or whatever because, you know, I'm only human at the end of the day. I don't feel right, you know. So
yeah. Have you tried a Vipassana retreat?
Vipassana.
Yes. Sorry. Butchering the language.
Actually, because when I went to India, I wanted to go up to Rishikesh or up to the Himalayan foothills to do some sort of a meditation retreat. I ended up not doing it, and I bought this book. Holy Cow, it's called. It's a great book, right? Of a lady who goes to India and experiences all of these crazy things, seeing lepers, seeing people with no arms, no legs, all of that, which is it's very much out visible for everyone to see.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go in India, it's a big shock. It talked about the Vipassana. That's when I first heard about it. And I thought, this is something I would love to do. And I've never done it to this day. Something that is actually on my list of to-dos. But, you know, I first learned about meditation and experienced meditation on stage with Pandit Ravi Shankar.
Being in that moment.
Performing, and I would be accompanying, my hand would just do what I was doing. And that's when I went into a deep meditation, when I experienced that on a serious, deep level, I guess, yeah. Not sitting quietly in the silence, trying to listen to my breathing. I could never do that. I always struggled with that. I always felt like I had to have a point of focus. Yeah. So yeah. But Vipassana, no. Have you?
No, I've wanted to try it, but it's such a long time. What is it like?
I think it's 10 or 14 days. I think the first round.
Yeah, I can't get past like half an hour of meditation for me.
See, it's funny because when I was in this dark period, and I started listening to the frequency meditation, I remember reading an article about it saying you have to listen to it. It takes 7 minutes for it to start to affect you on a cellular level.
Yeah.
I couldn't even listen to it for 7 minutes. I couldn't sit still or anything. I was just so many things was happening. I was like in this manic state almost all of the time. I had to calm my nervous system down. It's when I learned about nervous system regulation and all of that later. It was be like, right, I've done 6 minutes. Right, I need to just keep still. Like, I just need and I just couldn't do it. Now, you know, after a few months or not even that, a few weeks, I was doing it for 2 or 3 hours in one sitting.
Wow. That's a hell of a long time to just do that. I mean, I used to teach meditation sessions back in the day. I used to, I did Osho meditations.
Oh, right, yes. Yeah,
so a lot of cathartic release, a lot of screaming, shouting, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And honestly, like, it was one of the most eye-opening things I've ever done. It was amazing. And I don't think... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, you're quite closed off from that. You don't really realise the power of it until you actually do something like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's powerful stuff. Energy work, energy healing, auras, all of that. I'm very much into all of that. It's a huge thing.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, even just like, when was the last time you shouted and let something out to that degree? It's crazy. Like, you might lose your shit in traffic, but you never scream for like, I mean, you do it for like a good 10 minutes of just solid screaming and just, I'll send you the videos afterwards, but...
And all of that is coming out and whatever it... Yeah, you're releasing it.
It's nuts, man.
These things get stored, not just in our energy field, auric field, also in our cells, in our water.
Hydrate, bitches. Drink your water, man.
I'm very much into, you know, like There's a guy called Dr. Masaru Emoto, I think his name is, and he has a book called Hidden Messages in Water. And it talks about, he conducted some experiments where he would say certain words to a glass of water. Love, hope, peace, and then some of it would be other kind of dirty words, nasty words or whatever. And he had this equipment that would analyse the molecules in the water, and very much like snowflakes and stuff like that. When he would say these positive, loving words to the water, it would show that the water molecules had these beautiful snowflake-type patterns.
Yeah.
And when he would say a negative word, hate, or a swear word or whatever, they would have this distorted pattern.
Oh, interesting.
So this is like going into this on kind of another level.
On a molecular level,
It shows
really.
that these energies and these words, negative actions, positive actions, all of that has an impact on us.
Yes.
It also has an impact. We know we're mostly water, so all of these things have an impact on our bodies as well on a cellular level. Yeah.
100%. Well, listen, Nick, I want to ask you one last question, mate. What kind of life are you after now?
I've gone through quite a lot, you know. I've certainly done a lot. I've lived my life, experienced a lot. But to me, that's normal. I kind of want to just live in a peaceful, quiet, humble, private, to a point. I'm here doing a podcast.
Yeah.
A private life. And that's it, really. Yeah.
Peace.
Simple.
Is it peace?
Peace, yeah, inner peace, which I feel like I've got now. But that's work. You have to work at it, you know. Like I say, it's a way of life, and that's something that I can see myself going into in the future is, just having a quiet, peaceful, simple life.
With a cup of tea in your hand.
Yeah.
Well, listen, mate, this has been an amazing episode. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to your story. It's an incredible journey considering, like, you rarely think of, you see the results on the outside, but you rarely see what goes on the inside. You rarely see the behind the scenes of people. And I think what you spoke about today really shows the behind the scenes. It really shows that inner work that someone can go through. It really shows the drive that people need to get ahead. And I think a lot of people take inspiration from your story, mate. So thank you so much for coming on. Where can people follow you? Where can people find what you do? Where can people invest in what you do?
Well, yeah, I'm quite private.
Yeah.
I don't have a website or anything like that, but I do have social media. It is private. But if anybody wants to reach out to me, I do read private messages and all of that. So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Amazing. I'll tag you on the screen as well.
Yeah.
But listen, guys, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us the 5-star reviews. None of this 4-star absolute bullshit. It's 5-star or nothing. I'm sick of these 4-star things. So thank you very much, guys. Be sure to check out all the episodes on Spotify, Apple Music, and they're now going up on YouTube as well, thankfully as well, which is new to me, but we're getting there. So thank you very much, guys, for listening. I will see you all in the very next episode.